I just tricked the dog. I just put his like joint pain gummy in his food, but I had to take it to the freezer, pretend I was getting him something out of the freezer, sprinkled it in, shook it around, brought it back. I mean, he's a husky, he's a smart dog. He figured it out pretty quick, but as perception goes, he thought he was getting something special. And as soon as I set the food down and he was so excited and thought he was getting a special treat, I realized, I thought about perception versus reality and how we perceive things as human that aren't always true or real. And it's been kind of a challenge lately for me anyway, because I keep changing things externally and hoping that it will just like automatically change things internally. But that's not how it works. Like I change things externally, and then my internal stories and the stories I keep telling myself don't match like what I'm actually doing, which is interesting because I feel like I'm living this pretty great life and I'm taking time this year to like really experiment with a lot of different things, different ways of living, different ways of moving around the world, different ways of meeting people. And, but inside, my perception of it all is like that I'm failing at everything. It's like the story I keep telling myself is that, oh, I don't have a job because I failed. That's not the reality of it. I wanted to try something new. That's why I don't have a job. And, oh, I'm gonna have to start like using my savings. It's like, and that's gonna make me broke. That's not true. Like, I have runway for a couple months, before, I do need to start making changes. So the perception of it is like, oh my God, I'm gonna go broke. But the reality, that's not true. And same with relationships, same with like goals. It's like, well, all the other ones in the past failed, so should I even try anymore? And in reality, yes, I should absolutely try because that's like what makes me me. I love meeting new people. I love, and I'm so goal oriented. Like I love achieving new things. And the reality with that is that I keep achieving new things and I don't take the time to celebrate the new thing. I don't take the time to say, like, wow, look, I finally did this thing. Woohoo! Like, celebrate, like, recognize it, notice it, and then move to the next goal. So there's all these things kind of happening internally that I'm like perceiving as failures. And in reality, they're not. Like, I'm growing, I'm changing, my identity is shifting. And I am really trying to turn this negative perception I have in my head to positive and think of things um differently, like look at it through a different lens, right? And so some of the examples I gave you, job, relationship, all that stuff, it's like if you look at the glass and say it's half empty, yeah, your perception and your reality of that glass is half empty. But if I look at it and I say that glass is half full, that's my perception and my reality. Like, so I want to make my perception match my reality. And I really need to practice speaking more positively to myself, about myself, And what's interesting too is that I'm hyper aware of it now. Like ever since I decided to really take time this year to run all these experiments. I mean, public speaking to YouTube, for example. I feel like I'm failing at YouTube because, it's not a smash hit. It's not like I have thousands of followers and millions of hours of views. And it makes sense. It makes total sense because I'm still starting out. I'm still experimenting with like, what is this channel about? Like, what do I want to do with it? Are you just on a journey with me, or is there, more backstory I need to talk about? And so this whole thing is just a giant experiment, and I need to reframe it as I'm not failing. I'm actually getting better at public speaking and speaking to a camera. And when I frame it like that, when I look at it like that, I'm like, yes, this is awesome. Because I've always wanted to be more eloquent in my speaking. I've always wanted to really dive into deep subjects and deeper thinking and deeper, philosophical ideas. And I think one thing that held me back in the past is I don't feel like I can speak as well as I want to speak. And so, who's going to take me seriously if I talk about these big, huge subjects? But the whole time I'm saying, and like, like, does that make sense? Like totally. Like, I mean, so when like this happens and like that happens, like totally, then woo, you know? I don't want to speak like that. I don't want to sound like that. I want to sound awesome because I am awesome and I have lots of really good big ideas. And this speaking to camera is just helping me with that fear and getting over what my voice sounds like, what my face looks like, how I move my body, and it's a great experiment. It's been an awesome experiment just for the speaking alone, just for hearing my own voice back to me and loving it. Because in the past I didn't love it. I've had the same voice my whole life, but my perception of my voice was that it didn't sound good. And I don't know where that happened. I know, I love to just like belt out lyrics randomly in conversation and walking down the street and in the car. And I think one too many times people said like, "Oh, no, don't do that. Like, who sings that song? Oh, yeah, you should let them sing it." And I think too many times of that gave me this complex, this perception that I don't have a good voice. My voice doesn't sound good. Even in speaking, I started to feel like, ooh, who wants to hear my voice? Nobody. That's an awful perception to have about myself, right? And it's not the reality. And I know it's not the reality. I'm not just making this up in my head. I know it's not the reality because I've had plenty of friends have hours and hours and hours of conversations with me and enjoy it. And I've had friends hear me belt out lyrics and they love it. And some people even go as far as to say, like, you have a great voice. And I'm like, yes. Like the reality and the perception don't match. And I feel like when they don't match, things don't move forward, for the example of the dog food, like now that he sees that like he didn't actually get a treat, he's not eating the food anymore. So he's like, oh, I perceived something special coming out of that freezer and nothing came out. So I'm not going to eat this food. He's going to show me. But yeah, it's like, and the other thing with all of this is the facts. like removing emotion from the situation and just looking at the facts. What are the facts? Asking the question. And journaling has been huge because I get to write down the facts and I get to write down the emotion. And then I get to see it. I get to see, wow, like I'm totally looking at this thing, but I'm perceiving it as this whole other emotional, like trauma or wound or whatever that exists from like 100 years ago. And I need to get rid of that so that what I'm seeing actually matches my reality. And I guess for me, this biggest lesson is here's the other thing. I want to say this too, because sometimes our reality doesn't match what we want it to be, right? And so if we perceive it, no, that's not good. I'm gonna have to think about this one for a while, but it's also, you can't also have like a reality, but actually, I'll have to come back to this. I'm sorry. Because now I'm thinking about perceiving your reality as like great when in reality it's not great. So there's also that shift you need to make where you can't just be delusional about your reality either. You can't be like, oh, I can spend $1 million because, I'll make it. I'll make it in 2 weeks, like, is that a reality? Do you have something working in the direction that, yeah, you could hit $1 million in 2 weeks? Like in some cases, yeah, and that's great. Like you can be positively delusional as long as you also have things that are working for you that could hit that and make it a reality. But you also can't just live in this la la land. Again, the lottery ticket where you think, oh, I'm going to win the lottery next week. So I can just spend all my money but you never buy the lottery ticket, so you also have to like have in that way your perception match your reality in that you can hope for better, but make sure you're also, the reality of like what you're doing to make it better and can you get there and in the amount of time you're giving yourself and all of that. And that's a whole different subject. So I won't go into that. I want to think about that for a while. But I just think that I really need to work on these negative thoughts and change them and just really focus on the good. And I've talked about this too, being grateful for what I already have in my life. And and just because something isn't happening as fast as you think it should doesn't mean it's not coming. And so I don't want to lose perspective and just think I'm failing, because that's not true. Anyway, I hope this new perception helps helps me move forward and just know that it's not such a bad thing what I'm doing, these experiments I'm running and what this year brings. So, thanks for coming along this journey.